The morning Diana Voss tore a man's resume in half in front of 23 board members. She had no idea the file she was dismissing contained the only signature in the world capable of ending her company in 90 days. Marcus Holt watched his 2-page resume fall in clean halves onto the Hartwell conference table, picked up both pieces without a word, folded them into his jacket pocket, and walked back to the elevator. He pushed the button for the lobby. His phone showed 11 missed calls from the bank, and somewhere above him, Diana Voss was already asking her assistant to pull the next candidate's name, her heels clicking back toward her chair on the 43rd floor. Her chest tighter than she could explain, as though something had just left the building that she was going to spend a very long time trying to get back. Marcus had been awake since 4:15. That was the hour his daughter Lily had started sleeping through the age of 7, had been kinder than 6 in this specific way, and he had learned to lie still in the dark after the alarm, listening to the nothing that meant she was still in her bed and the night was intact. His apartment above the shop was 41 stairs from his workbench. He counted them every morning on his way down, because the counting gave him something to put in the front of his mind while the rest of it worked through the day ahead. 11 days. That was how much time remained before Coastal Federal exercised the foreclosure clause on the $340,000 operating line his father had taken out in 2019. During the months when Marcus had not been returned, had not been much of anything to anyone. His father had signed the extension to keep the firm alive, Holt and Associates, a name Marcus had never asked to inherit, because he believed his son would come back to it eventually. His father had been right. He had been wrong about the timeline. The shop was 3 rooms of desk and file cabinet, and 1 glass-walled conference room his father had called the fish. Marcus had 14 clients, now small and mid-sized businesses, quarterly reviews, none of the large-scale forensic work he had once done, none of the career that had ended 3 years ago in a way he did not discuss. The 14 clients were enough to service the loan by April. They were not enough to satisfy Coastal Federal in 11 days. On his corkboard above the main desk, among the standard certifications any CPA kept current, was a laminated badge he had never removed. The cord was frayed to its last few fibers. The badge showed a seal in dark blue, a name, a division title, the kind of thing that would mean nothing to most people and everything to about 400 people in 3 specific federal buildings. He kept it there because his daughter had once asked what it was, and he had said it was from a job he used to have, and she had said it looked important, and he had said that it was, for a while. Lily appeared at 6:40, with her dark braids coming undone on the left side, carrying the small spiral notebook with the cracked red cover that went everywhere she did. Her mother had kept one just like it, the same red, the same size, bought at the same drugstore 2 blocks over. Lily had found it in a box when she was 5, understood nothing about it and everything about it, and had gone to the same drugstore and bought one with money she had collected from the change Marcus left on the kitchen counter. She wrote things in it she wanted to. "You have a meeting today," she said. "Not a question." "I do. Is it the one you don't want to go to?" He handed her the bowl of oatmeal he had made while she slept. "Eat before it gets cold." She sat at the kitchen table and wrote something in the red notebook with the stub of pencil she kept tucked in the spiral. He stood at the window and watched the street below. He had almost said no when the Hartwell intermediary called yesterday and said the client's name. He needed the money too badly to say no. Lily finished her oatmeal and looked at him with her mother's particular quality of attention. "Dad," she said, "the compass says we're going the right direction." She meant it literally. There was a brass compass on the kitchen windowsill that had been her mother's, and Lily checked it every morning. He did not correct the literalness. "Good," he said. "Then let's go." Across the city, Diana Voss had been awake since 5. She had read the final terms of the Meridian Financial acquisition at 5 in the morning, signed her name to the instrument of transfer on page 41, and sat in the chair by the window for 23 minutes, looking at a city she owned pieces of in ways she had stopped itemizing. The acquisition was the 6th this year. Her father had built Voss Capital on a philosophy she had never heard him articulate. Because she had never met him, he had died when she was 4. And what she knew of his thinking came from documents and from the people who worked for him, and who sometimes said your father would have done it the same way, which she had stopped taking as a compliment years ago and had not found another way to receive. She had one photograph of him in the apartment. It lived in a drawer. She had tried it once on the wall above her desk and had taken it down the same morning, though she could not have explained, if pressed, exactly what it was she felt when she looked at it. What her father had left her was a company worth $400 million and a board of directors who were professionally loyal, personally afraid of her, and a reputation built on the specific combination of correctness and speed that left no room for the other. Options people kept trying to present. She was 38. She had acquired 11 companies in 4 years. She had a personal lawyer, a head of security, and an assistant named Peter, who anticipated her schedule to within 90 seconds, and who had never once surprised her, which she valued above almost everything. She did not have a person who checked the compass. She had requested the Hartwell forensic review because the secondary accounts showed 3 years of anomalies she could not explain through normal channels, and did not trust her internal team to explain honestly. She had gone through 2 referral agencies and received one name on both lists. Holt and Associates, a small firm, a recent portfolio that was ordinary. And then a gap in the record going back 4 years, and before the gap, a record that had made her set her coffee down and read the page again. She had not mentioned what she found before the gap to Peter. She had told him to schedule the meeting. She tore his resume because she was in front of 23 board members, and the resume showed her nothing she needed. And she dismissed what she didn't need. And she had made a decision about the firm in the 11 seconds before the tearing that she had been making for 4 years. She would not go back. She did not understand yet that what she had just torn was not a resume. The elevator doors opened to the lobby at 10:17. Marcus stepped out and stood on the wet sidewalk and did not take the torn resume from his jacket pocket. He had folded it neatly. He called Peter. "She tore it," he said when Peter answered. "I'm sorry, Mr. Holt. She does. She can call me when she's ready to talk about the anomalies on pages 17 through 22 of the Hartwell secondary ledger." Not before. He ended the call. He looked up at the 43-story building. He thought about Diana Voss the way he thought about the Coastal Federal Loan Officer as a specific kind of problem that arranged itself around its own solution, given enough time and the right information. He had the right information. He walked to his car. At 5:58, his cell rang with a number he did not recognize. "Mr. Holt," her voice was structured, each word landing where she intended it. "I'm told you have thoughts about pages 17 through 22. Questions," he said. Thoughts come after the questions get answered. She was quiet for 2 seconds, the quiet of someone recalibrating. "I'd like to meet," she said. "I'm in my office until 6. It's 5:59. Then you have a minute." The pause that followed lasted longer than a minute. He heard something in it, not composure, but the working toward composure, which was a different sound, and he was good at sounds. "Tomorrow morning," she said. 8. "My office or yours?" "Yours, then I'll be there," he said, and ended the call. She arrived at 8:02. He heard her footsteps on the stairs, the pace of someone not used to arriving second and not going to show it. He had one mug of coffee on the desk. His own was in his hand. She stopped in the doorway and looked at the room the way she had looked at his resume, quickly, efficiently, assigning value. He watched her eyes stop on the laminated badge. Not long. But her eyes went there and stayed one beat too long, and he noted it and filed it and moved on. "You found the Cayman transfers," she said. "I found what your internal team missed," he said, "or chose to miss." She sat in the chair across from his desk without waiting to be invited. She was deciding how much to reveal. He let her decide. "How long have you known about the Hartwell anomalies?" "Since page 4, he said. "The question on page 4 is whether it was incompetence or direction. Pages 17 through 22 answer that. And? Direction. Someone told your Hartwell auditors exactly what not to find, and your auditors were professional enough to not find it. The question is who gave the instruction." She was still. The stillness was deliberate. "I need to know what we're looking at," she said. "3 things," he said. "What happened? What's still happening? And who benefits?" "I can give you all 3, but I need the full Hartwell access chain, which means you make a call to someone on your board who isn't going to want to take it." She looked at him steadily. Then, in a voice that arrived slightly smaller than her regular voice, as though it had gotten away from her before she could scale it properly, "How did you get this good at finding things people don't want found?" She seemed to hear what she'd asked, and looked briefly at the window. He did not answer it. He set a printed ledger page on the desk in front of her. "Garrett Sloan," he said. "He's on your Hartwell Integration Committee." The day Lily met Diana Voss, it was by accident. Marcus had a client call that ran 40 minutes past schedule. Lily had been dropped at the office by her after-school coordinator, pickup window closed. No one else to call. She let herself in with the key she wore on a chain around her neck and settled at the small corner table with her red notebook. She had been there 20 minutes when Diana arrived for their 3 o'clock. Marcus held up one finger from behind his office door. Diana stopped in the front room doorway and looked at the child at the corner table. The child looked back without the flicker of uncertainty children usually showed around strangers who arrived with the particular energy Diana carried. "Are you lost?" Lily asked. Diana blinked. "No, my dad says you can tell a lot about a person by what they do when they're—" Lily said with the tone of someone completing a thought. "I was checking." Diana looked at her more carefully. "What do you do when you're lost?" "Check the compass," Lily said, and held it up from the table beside the red notebook, small, brass, worn to a particular smoothness, where a thumb had rested daily for longer than Lily had been alive. "It always points home." Diana's response came in the wrong register. "Too careful." "That's a practical approach," she said, in the voice she used in rooms where she was the most important person. Lily nodded as though this was exactly right. "You can sit if you want. Dad's almost done. He always says that when he means 10 minutes. Diana sat. She sat at the corner table across from Lily and was quiet while Lily went back to the red notebook. "Then, what do you write in that?" "Things I want to remember." Lily turned the notebook toward her slightly and read from the day's page. "Today, the sun came through the window at a slant. Dad made oatmeal with brown sugar. The compass pointed home." She paused. "Dad says the small things are the ones that disappear if you don't write them down." Diana Voss looked at a child reciting a philosophy she had never heard stated plainly, handed down from a father who had not once mentioned it in this building. Something in her expression stopped assembling itself a half-second, no more like a machine asked to run on no power at all. "He's right," she said, and her voice was quieter than it had been. "I know," said Lily pleasantly, and went back to writing. Marcus came out to find them at the corner table in a silence that was easy rather than strained. He looked at it for a moment, without explaining anything to himself about it. Then he set his phone on the desk and said, "We should go over the Hartwell access chain." 3 days later, Garrett Sloan walked into the fishbowl without knocking. He was a tall man who wore his suit as proof rather than clothing. He arrived mid-sentence, addressing Diana, ignoring Marcus entirely. He picked up the small brass compass from the table where Lily had left it that morning and turned it over in his hand without asking. "Diana," he said, "I heard you've brought in outside help." "I brought in an accountant," she said. "I'm wondering what a 2-room office on Clement Street adds to what we have internally." Marcus was looking at a ledger page. He did not look up. "The Trellis Holdings LLC account," he said. "Opened under your mother's name. The wire to it on March 4th, 2019, the 3 that followed July, September, November." Garrett Sloan stopped breathing, then resumed. 4.2 million total. The authorization codes match the signatory codes you used on the Hartwell SOX compliance filings. Marcus looked up. His voice had dropped half a register without rising in speed or intensity. "The SEX Division of Enforcement has a standing pattern interest in accounts with those particulars. I'd know." He returned to the ledger. "Take the compass with you when you leave," Marcus said, "but leave." Now, Garrett Sloan straightened his cuffs. He stopped. He set the compass down slightly wrong, in the wrong position. Marcus reached over and adjusted it without looking at Garrett, and without stopping what he was doing. Garrett Sloan did not threaten anything on his way out. He did not compose a parting line. He walked through the fishbowl door and was on the stairs, and then was gone. And the office was quiet in the way rooms are quiet after the largest pressure in them has been removed. Diana Voss sat for the length of time it took Marcus to turn 3 pages of the ledger, slowly, without hurry. Her hands were flat on the table. Her face was doing something he did not look at directly. "How long have you known?" she said at last. "Not about Garrett, about you. Who you were." He closed the ledger. "Let me make a call," he said. "And then I need to show you something. It's not in the office." She found the first layer herself. He had thought about whether to tell her directly or let the documents show her. And he had decided on the documents. She sat in his office that evening with the access chain files, and she went through them the way she went through everything without rushing. She read for 40 minutes. He was at his own desk. She stopped at page 31. She read it again. "This is you," she said. The page was the SEC press release from April 2021, the closing summary of the Carver-Brent enforcement case, the largest accounting fraud dismantlement in the division's history. $880 million recovered. Lead investigator, Marcus J. Holt, Division of Enforcement. "You built the Carver-Brent case," she said. "I did." She turned 3 more pages. She stopped again. He knew which page it was. The Carver-Brent connected parties list partially released on appeal containing, on page 44, the name of the financial architecture firm that had constructed the fraud's off-ledger structure, Voss Capital, acting under its then senior managing partner, Harrison Sloan, Garrett's father, and the man who had been Diana's father's oldest business partner, running Voss Capital's structural finance division for 3 years before Diana's father died and left her his company. She was quiet for a long time. Then she stood and picked up her bag and looked at him with an expression that was not anger and not guilt. It was recognition, the specific understanding that arrives when a person realizes they have been looking at a building from the wrong angle for years and has just walked around to the side that shows what it actually is. "You need to show me the other thing," she said. The thing that's not in the office. He drove them to the bridge at 6 when the light was going flat and bronze, and the memorial park was nearly empty. It was a pedestrian bridge now, or the space where one had been the original taken down in 2020 after the investigation, after the wrongful death suits, after the engineering firm's liability was settled and appealed and settled again. What stood now was a small park with a low granite wall and a plaque and 3 trees just old enough to have stopped looking like they were trying. The plaque listed 3 names. He pointed to the 3rd name, Alina Holt. She was the project safety officer on the original bridge, he said. 3rd party contracted by the engineering firm. She filed a report 6 days before the collapse documented a stress fracture in the primary load-bearing junction, a defect in the original construction specs, signed off on by the structural finance oversight team at Voss Capital's infrastructure subs. Diana stood very still. The report was received. It was logged. It was not acted on. After the bridge came down and took 3 workers with it, the report was suppressed by the legal team handling the wrongful death litigation. He paused. He looked at the plaque. I didn't know who had suppressed it when I took the Carver-Brent case. I found out during the investigation. By then, Alina had been dead for 2 years. He said all of this in the same register he used for everything. No performance. Facts in sequence, in the flat, even voice of a man who had held this for a long time and had learned that holding it did not require a particular face. The suppression came from inside your father's company, he said. Harrison Sloan's division. But the document that buried the report carries your company's, and it is still in your archives. She did not speak. He waited. Alina kept the red notebook, he said after a while. Lily found it when she was 5. She asked me if it was magic, because every time she opened it there were things she hadn't put there. I told her those were her mother's things. She said that meant her mother was still putting them in. Another pause. I didn't correct. He looked at the plaque for a moment without speaking. The name was just a name, 4 syllables, 2 words, the kind of thing that fit on granite without difficulty. What it did not fit was everything outside the granite. The morning she had driven to the site. The report she had filed. The 6 days. The things she had written down. The things she had wanted to remember. The small things she had said disappeared if you didn't. The trees moved in the evening air. The granite plaque caught the last of the bronze light and gave it back at a lower temperature. Diana Voss sat down on the low wall facing the plaque. She sat for a long time. When she finally looked at Marcus, what she saw on his face was the quality of a man who had already done his grieving and was not inviting anyone to observe it, and who was, entirely without sentimentality, offering her the same grace. "What do you need from me?" she said. What the law needed, it turned out, was the suppressed safety report released, authenticated, and filed with the appropriate oversight body, which Diana did on a Thursday afternoon in her attorney's office, while Marcus sat across from her and signed the documentation that formally closed the loop on the Carver-Brent connected parties, case his signature, as original lead investigator, relevant to the chain of custody for the new filing. Garrett Sloan had stopped returning calls by then. His Trellis Holdings account had been flagged by the SEC on a Wednesday, acting on a pattern match referral submitted by an anonymous forensic accountant with a recognizable filing style. He was present in the Voss Capital boardroom on the Friday morning when Diana called the board to order and the general counsel read the filing into the record. The room's quality of air changed in the way rooms change when everyone understands simultaneously that a game has ended. Garrett picked up his pen. He held it. He set it down. He did not pick it up again. 2 federal officers were in the lobby when he reached it. He did not look back at the building. He simply stopped moving in the direction he had been going and then he was no longer in the story, and the story moved on without him immediately. His last line, a one-sentence email sent at 11:43 from his personal account, "This isn't over," was read aloud by Diana in the subsequent board session, calmly, and answered with the fact that it was. Coastal Federal received a payment on a Tuesday. It came not from Diana, he would have declined it, but from the Voss Capital Legal Settlement Fund, a provision established during the wrongful death appeal for contractor restitution. Marcus's name had been on it since 2021. Nobody had told him. He stood in his kitchen and looked at the confirmation notice for a long time. Then he put it on the corkboard next to the laminated badge and went downstairs to work. 1 year later, Lily had started the second notebook. The first was full methodical. 1 page per day, and when the last page filled she had said simply that it was good. Because now she could put it somewhere safe and know it would always have those things in it. She kept it in the drawer of her bedside table. She started the second with a drawing of the brass compass on the first page, so she would know where the first one ended. The shop had 3 new clients. The fishbowl conference room had a plant. Lily had chosen a small succulent she named Gerald, and there was a second desk in the front room that was sometimes occupied. Not always. Sometimes Diana came on Thursday mornings, usually, standing meeting, the Carver Brent adjacent filings. She brought coffee she had made herself, which Peter had not been asked to arrange, which Marcus had noted without comment. Lily was at the corner table one such Thursday, working in the second notebook when Diana arrived. She looked up. "Do you know what I wrote today?" Lily said. "What did you write?" Diana said. Diana came. She brought the coffee with the right amount of sugar. Gerald got watered. Diana set the coffee on Marcus's desk. Her hand rested at the corner, near his hand, and neither of them moved it anywhere. She looked at Gerald. Gerald looked fine. "He's thriving," said Lily, and went back to writing. Some people spend their whole lives building walls high enough that no one can see what they're protecting, never realizing the only one they've managed to keep out is the person who already knew the. If this story reached you, share it with someone who needed to hear that the truth doesn't disappear. Just because someone buries it, it just waits for the right person to come looking. Subscribe if you want more stories told the way they deserve to be told. And here is the question I need you to sit with. If you inherited your father's company and discovered it had buried the report that could have saved someone's wife, would you burn down everything he built to set the record straight? Or carry the silence he left you? Leave your answer below. We read every one.